You've talked in the past about when you first started up, there was a proposal to Ric Flair where Rick Rubin would have put up, I forget, how much was it that he would have put up?
$100,000. Well, $120,000. Because here was the deal. When Flair made it known that he was leaving, for a while there, remember, there was conjecture as to where he was going and what he was going to do. He didn't leap immediately and announce that he was with the WWF. Everybody was up in arms and wondering what was going on. So Rubin called me. He said, call Flair. Because, I mean, at that time, people forget Flair didn't need to go to work for Vince McMahon. He could have called Baba and got, what would you think? 20 weeks a year in Japan at $15,000 or $20,000 a year.
Maybe slightly
15,
more.
I'm sorry,
actually.
not a year, $15,000 or $20,000 a week. They were paying the Road Warriors at that time, what, $12,000, and Brody and Hanson, those guys were in 12, 13, 14 grand a week. Flair, because of not only because of who he was, but also because of his status with the NWA title, could have got that. Anyway, and that was, some people were conjecturing whether or not he would just do that, or will he go to Vince? Of course, Rick, he wanted to be on TV. Let's be honest. He was going to, go to work for Vince just because he wanted to be, in this country, the biggest star in the business. That's why he, was so good. He always wanted to excel. Anyway, but Rubin says, call Flair up and tell him if he'll make one show a month for us, we'll give him $10,000 apiece. And you pick, if he makes TV 3 months in a row and then comes to the Knoxville Coliseum and works the main event. And then he makes TV 2 months in a row and goes to Johnson City or whatever, for the notoriety, for the obviously the live event tickets that he would have sold, because you would kept him special, so people would know he's only going to be here, once or twice a year, and it's Ric Flair and a blah blah blah. Especially if he went to Japan, you can't see him anywhere else domestically. Of course, it would have been worth that. And I pitched it to Rick, and I say, between here and Japan, I was trying to lead him in that direction, but he appreciated it. But he said, I'll let you know. But he was going to go to work for Vince. So, but that was a legitimate offer that Rick Rubin made to Ric Flair. If he would, we would have had not a world champion, but he would have been the champion of something that was bigger than our regional title, so that he could come in and do a defense or whatever, but we wouldn't have had a Smoky Mountain Wrestling world champion. But that was a legitimate offer. He would have paid him the fucking money if he'd have done it.
Is there any other wrestler, let's say, going to this period of time, 95?
And by the way, hold on now. And people are saying $10,000 for Ric Flair once again, 30 fucking years ago. That was more like, what, 30 or 35 grand a day. And people weren't getting 10 grand in wrestling to just show up for one night.
Yeah, for Ric Flair, 10 grand is like one day's debt. So what?
That's the first tray of kamikazes.
When you look at this period of time, 95, 96, so a few years after that, is there anyone you could have gone back to Rick Rubin for, a specific wrestling talent that you could have said, we would have the ability to get this person? Would you be able to do something like we were thinking about doing with Flair?
Well, no, because for one thing, Flair was Rubin's favorite wrestler. Secondly, Flair was kind of unique in that instance. And also that was as Smoky Mountain Wrestling was forming. And actually that was, you asked me the other day who knew about Smoky Mountain ahead of time. I'm trying to think, was this right as maybe find out when Rick showed up in 92 in the WWF, because I may have had
He showed up in 91. He showed up in 91.
Okay, then he knew what I was doing. Because I forgot. I had to clue him in because that was beforehand. Did he show up in late 91, November, December?
No, they started teasing him towards the end of summer 91, because remember, the Bash was when the whole We Want Flair chant happened, and Flair FedExed the title belt to Vince shortly after that.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
And so you had seen him at the Arezzi convention.
Yeah.
That August also.
But I did tip him off because the first public knowledge of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and this didn't go very far, really, for what I thought it might, was when we did the first taping, the first TV taping. Bobby Fulton had found a sponsor that wanted to run some independent live events, and Bobby was booking them and running them for him. And he booked me and Stan on one in Greenville, South Carolina, at the Memorial Auditorium. And that's when I said, Bobby, if I add extra guys to the card that I pay for and bring in equipment that I pay for and give you some money for advertising to get a better crowd, can I shoot a TV taping? And that's why I kind of told Bobby a little bit about what I was doing there. And he said, okay. And so October, what was it, 27th, 1991, I believe, was it October 27th? Was it? I can't even remember. But anyway, the end of October was our first TV taping on Bobby Fulton's show. It wasn't advertised as Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I don't even know I can't remember whether we had our signage up or not, but Bob Caudle was there and we did the TV and everybody was talking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And it didn't get a lot of news. And then we sat on the tapes after we had the two shows posted. Those were what we gave to TV stations as here's what we're going to be doing. And we didn't go on the air until the following February. So I talked to Flair right before that taping. It must have been because it was before he decided to go to work for Vince. So I smartened Flair up about Ruben also, because he had met Ruben at the Omni the previous year when I did. Because that's the two people that Ruben wanted to meet, was me and Flair.
Looking back now and knowing how the business was for Smoky Mountain Wrestling when you first started, how much of a boost do you think Ric Flair would have brought in 1992, 1993?
It would have been easier in the big towns. As I just mentioned, the spot shows came out first because they hadn't seen live wrestling. They hadn't seen the Rock and Roll Express in 5 years. They hadn't had the experience. But Knoxville and Johnson City and towns like that had a territory die in front of them on a regular basis, they had found other things to do, and they were harder to get back, and they were harder to convince. It's not going to be we're going to give you this for 6 months and then we're gone. That's one thing, because you remember back in those days, a lot of times fans would say, well, we'll see what happens if they're going to be around or not before they'd get involved with the thing. Especially the non-smart, just regular wrestling fans. They're like, if we could have advertised Ric Flair straight up front, he'll be in the Coliseum, folks, on Friday night or whatever, that would have been instant major credibility. I mean, we had Bob Armstrong, but people had seen Bob Armstrong. That's part of the reason why we had him, because he was over, but he wasn't new. And they had independent shows that would come and go. But if you had announced at that point in time, they're on TV every week, and look, Ric Flair's wrestling for them, that would have got people's dander up quite quickly.